to start flaring out. So that is up to you where you want the flare to start. So let's say I decided to start my flare. I'm just gonna 2 inches after the hip. So I know from 2 inches after the hip, I'm gonna start thinking how much I wanna add more room. And then at the same time, think about how much you wanna flare out. So you wanna like add 2 inches flare on each panel of the skirt, or you can do 1 inch. 1 inch is not a lot. So that's something you wanna imagine how you want the skirt to look. The more fabric you add out, the more flare the skirt will get. Okay. So I'm gonna do, let's say, 2.5 flare on each panel. So you're gonna, on the bottom of your skirt, you're gonna measure 2.5 inch out, and you're gonna start on the bottom. What you need to do is
that the side?
Mm-hmm, right. The side. Yeah, we're gonna do all the panel. So I just started on the side. So here is my 2 inch where I'm gonna start. I'll take my ruler. I'm gonna start 2.5 on the bottom. I'm gonna connect the line. So I added extra fabric to the side. Here, I start blending.
How far did you extend out at the
I
bottom?
went 2.5 inch out.
Okay.
So here's the hip. So somewhere about 2 inch after, my distance here is about maybe 1/4. So whatever you do on your first piece, whichever side you start, you're gonna do the identical to all your panel. Okay, does that make sense?
So then if you do like 2 inches on each panel, the skirt can be pretty flared out.
2 inches, yeah. Mm-hmm. So you kind of like, what you want to do is imagine, this is that panel, that princess line right here. So here's the hip. Here's the hip. Stop running away from me. And then, so here's the hip area, right? 2 inches flare out is about here. So here's 2 inch distance. So the more you add, the more flare on the panel. Okay?
Do we add the same amount after?
Yeah, everything we do, we're gonna add all your panel first. When it's done, same allowance after.
And we can do as much as we in reason.
In reason, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When your skirt is short, when you do a lot, it is harder. But let's say if your skirt goes all the way to the floor, you can add a lot. And then you can so slowly, gradually, and add a lot. And if you use a really nice drapey fabric, this is beautiful. It's really very pretty. So that's something you can think about what fabric you want to use. You don't want anything too slippery, it's harder to sew, but you can get a nice soft fabric if you like to play around with it.
How much fabric do you think we should
I can show you guys how to do a quick yield and how much fabric you might need after with the pattern's done. We're probably at the end of the day today. I can show you guys how to do a yield and get an estimate how much yarn you might need. So whatever I did here, I'm going to do the same thing on this side.
So you just do one of those. You don't do it.
Every panel, every seam that you have, you're going to do the same thing because they got to balance. If you do one side and then you don't do the other side, your skirt is going to look crooked. So I'm going to find my same area on the other panel, the other side, and I'm going to start flaring. So I did 2.5, right? Somewhere here. And then I'm going to start blending.
And that's for the, which one?
This is the side front.
Okay. So when you do it to one side of it, you have to do it to the
Yes,
other.
you're going to do every single side.
Okay.
So this is the side seam here. This is the princess seam. And then I'm going to do the princess seam on my center front. And then same thing, I'm going to find the same area. So what you can do is look for, see how this notch here, and then whatever distance is, you want to do the same thing on the other side. That's one thing, one way to do it, okay? So you can take, I have about 6 1/8, somewhere here, because that's where the hip area. Then I can start flaring the same way. And then 2.5 on the bottom, and then I'll connect the line.
Now you're working on the fold. This is the one.
Yeah, this is the one on the fold. The one that on the fold is the center front. And if you have the little funky point, you just want to blend that into a smooth point. So all my panel is added. Because the center front, normally you don't add anything. So I did that. And then anytime, I'm going to show you guys how to do a little, go up a little bit on the side. Anytime you have a skirt that is flare out, you don't go a straight line like this. You don't go a straight. Because if you go, when you connect, there's a really funny point. So we're going to go up on the side a little bit, about a quarter. So I'm going to go up a quarter to give me a softer curve on the bottom. So I'm going to do the same thing on here.
Is that after the seam allowance?
After we add the flare. Okay. So after we add the flare, when we went straight, it doesn't look, I mean, when you sew, when you're gonna hem it, it's really hard to hem. That's why we go up about a quarter, roughly about a quarter.
Okay.
So here, I'll show you what I'm doing. If you're looking at it, if you're gonna sew this up, you're gonna lay your seam on it. See how this is it get a very sharp, kind of like a triangle point? You don't want that. That's why we went up, so when you hem them, it looks like a smooth curve. That makes sense?
How many flares would you do?
My center front,
One.
my side front get both sides. So then now, pretty much this whole thing is done, then add seam allowance. So you always add whatever correction or alteration on a pattern before you add seam allowance. So anytime, any design that I do, putting any seams in any places, you always alter it first, seam allowance after. So now, seam allowance everywhere, 1/2 inch, and then on the new panel, 1/2 inch on the panel. And then your hem, the skirt is going to get 1 inch. You know why we do 1 inch?
You can do 1/2 inch fold twice.
Yes. So anytime, this is the rule for hem. If you want, this is called clean finish. When you double fold, you fold and a fold, it's called clean finish hem. If you want to finish a quarter, so that small, you're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you want to finish a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you're going to do a 1 inch. But when you go above that, let's say you want like you have a straight skirt, you know how some of the hem are really big. If you want to finish a 1 inch hem, you're going to do 1 1/2. So you're going to fold half, then fold 1. That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you did the front seam allowance. Then you're going to do, I'm missing some pieces, I'm going to add. You're going to do the side. And you're going to do the same thing, 1/2 inch everywhere, 1/2 inch on the waist. And then same thing, you're going to do 1 inch on your hem, on your side. So, and then we're going to stop at this point, and then probably we'll do a break after somewhere.
Sorry, 1 inch where?
Hem.
On the bottom.
1 inch on the
okay.
bottom. Yeah.
1 inch seam allowance?
On the hem. Okay? So we're going to stop at this point, and you guys